All right, so let's continue on with our parts of the vertices. Hopefully you already labeled your major and minor axis, and I'm going to define that in a minute. But let's start off with a term that we've gotten familiar with over the past week or two, the vertex. But since we have two, you'll see in a minute that we have two in our ellipse, we're going to label or just let that be the vertices because there's two. Okay, so we're going to put the first part is your vertices. We'll go ahead and say there are two. And the vertices are going to be the farthest or the furthest, depending on where you're from, the furthest part or point from the center. Okay, that's your vertices. Okay, the vertices will always, add this, will always lie on the major axis. Okay, so that's your definition. You got two vertices. They're the farthest points from the center. So if I want, while you're writing that down, let me go in. Obviously your center is going to be here where your axes meet. That's your center C. And then your major axis, for your vertices, if it's the farthest points, then they're going to be the points here on the edges right there. So you want to label those V for vertices. So there's your vertices. You can see that on the board. Okay, got that. So there's two of them. Always on the major axis, furthest point from the center. Now, next part. I'm going to go ahead and put the major axis here. I pretty much already defined it. We'll say that it's always perpendicular. That's the perpendicular sign. You remember that from geometry. Perpendicular to the minor axis. And always has the vertices on it. So I basically just said, the same thing that I said for the vertices, but I want to just make sure you see it clearly given both ways. So the vertices and the major axis, they go together because they kind of, if you have one, you should be able to identify the other. Okay, so that's your major vertices. Now, once you got that written down, let's jump right into your minor axis. Your minor axis is, like I said, perpendicular, going to be to the major axis. And this is where your co-vertices lie on the minor axis. Okay, the co-vertices. So we got a lot of points here that we're talking about with your ellipse, a lot more than even with the parabola. Your minor axis, usually when you're looking at an ellipse, like when you've got it fully drawn, usually the minor axis is like the shorter one and the major is the longer one, if that helps. But if you've got everything labeled, then it'll be easy to figure out because the minor will have the co-vertices. And so we might as well go ahead and define that. Let me pull this up just a tad more. Your co-vertices, and the reason why it's plural is because there's two of these as well. So I'll go ahead and say that. There are two. There's two vertices and two co-vertices. There are two. And they are the farthest, or however you want to say it, points from the center on the minor axis. On the minor axis. Okay? So while you're writing that down, I'll go ahead and label, and you can label it too as well. Your co-vertices, furthest points from the center on the minor axis. So those will be here. Minor axis on the edge of your ellipse. And I always just say co-V like that. Co-V. The co-vertices. Okay, let me pull that down a little bit. So that gives you everything that's going on the outside of your vertex, of your ellipse, not including the center, but that's everything, the main points on the outside of your ellipse. There's one more pair of points that I want to give you, and they're called foci. These are your focus points, but because you have more than one, I have to give you the plural. So I'm going to say there are two of these as well. And your focus points lie between the center and the vertices. Now let's just use some common sense. If the focus points or the foci lie between the center and the vertices, then what axis should they be on? Hopefully you said the major axis. So we'll add one more thing here. I'll get another color. Your foci lie between the center and the vertices, so they would be somewhere here. And I'll let that be F for focus point. All right? So that's all your points. Got everything here. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and get what you need. In the next video, we're going to take that second ellipse that you have there, and we're going to talk about how to find the distance between